Well, joining me to discuss all of this is Sean Worth, a former Downing Street advisor in the days of David Cameron. Sean, welcome. Thanks for coming in. I mean, crises in government, that's hardly anything very new about that. But this, you know, and they sort of laughed off, didn't they, the 17 of them sitting in the garden and said they were talking about work. And maybe they were. Maybe they were. You know, maybe they were. But when you get an email that says, bring your own booze... I mean, that's a slam dunk, isn't it?
It looks really bad. And I think what you hit the nail on the head, actually, a little bit what you said there was no explanation offered. I think this is the thing killing the Prime Minister at the moment, and the thing really annoying backbench MPs in particular. I don't think there'll be a serious leadership challenge, you know, as is being floated and you kind of implied. But what they're really annoyed about, and I've spoken to two MPs about it today, is that not necessarily that the event took place, but there's no explanation. You know, you could come out and you said, like, version of what you said, you could say, look, it's like a submarine in Downing Street. It's, you know, we're dealing with national security. We can't work at home because of security. And I know this because you can't do working from home remotely and stuff because of a threat of hacking and all of that. We have to be there. We're dealing with national security, all the rest of it, and this pandemic. Somebody tried to take a bit of a break to take the pressure off. Bad choice of words in the email, obviously. We're so sorry about that. Here's a process we're going to put in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. The problem for the Prime Minister is that he's not done any of that.
Nothing.
And the big thing, sort of communications 101 in politics, and this is what I'm really surprised about, is that if you don't offer something, your critics and opponents, well, they'll fill the void for you and they'll chuck it full of, you know, all sorts of explanations and charges and all that, none of which you can respond to if you hold the current position that the Prime Minister's holding. So I think that's the, you know, real thing that's getting the goat of MPs at the moment, just the handling of it.
Would an apology suffice? Would it help?
Massively. I think if you just had a reasonable explanation...
But you've got to say sorry too.
You've got to say... Well, I think there's two things, right? First of all, you've got to have an explanation. Somebody's got to take responsibility. And it looks like they've got this official...
Martin Reynolds, yeah.
Yes, exactly. They've got this official that sent the email, slightly hanging him out to dry. I don't know if you know, they're going to end up firing him and giving him... You know, he'll pop up 2 years later as the governor of Bermuda or something. You know, but
which again angers people.
It does, yeah, it does. And you know, that sort of thing can happen, and maybe that might happen. But as I think you've been saying, actually, the buck stops with the PM, and he's got to come out and say, look, sorry for this. I know it looks bad. Here's the explanation. There's a process here that makes sure...
But when you say that, hang on, Sean, an explanation. We saw in the Downing Street garden an explanation for the Barnard Castle visit from Dominic Cummings. It would have been so much better for Cummings if he'd said, do you know what? It was my birthday. It was Easter Sunday. The weather was beautiful. I know we shouldn't have done what we did, but we did it. And I wonder how many of you watching this right now did the same. People would have said, oh, yeah, actually, he's got half. I mean, I just felt the Barnard Castle explanation was a catastrophe. And I just think his only way out of it is to really fess up.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you and I have just said, here's a plausible explanation that they might use, and that's literally off the top of our heads. And I'm sure clever people in Downing Street, given 3 hours, can come up with... Well, maybe not. I don't know. But sure, yeah, you'd hope that they could come up with some plausible explanation just to give people the assurance that...
Well, they need something, because this is really impacting. I mean, Snap poll today by Savanta Comres, and, yeah, you know, it's emotional and short-term and whatever, but of all adults, 66%... against 24%. 2/3 of those asked think he should resign.
Yeah. I mean, I arrived here slightly early when there's a bar across the street from where you are, and I had a quick drink in there. Everyone in the bar is talking about it.
Yes.
It's literally everybody's talking about it because I think the Prime Minister hasn't come out and given an explanation. So the void is being filled with all sorts of speculation and all, you know, who knows what the hell was he there? Was his wife there? Was the baby there? All these questions.
Yeah.
You can answer those questions later, but the Communications 101 handling exercise here is give a reasonably detailed explanation and answer detailed stuff later after the investigation.
Now, there is an official inquiry after the first inquiry host had to stand down because his department too had held the party. There is an investigation going on, but aren't these things generally whitewashes?
Well, Sue Gray, who's been... this is the lady that's been I think she'd been brought out of retirement, actually, to come and conduct the investigation. And she was a former... when I was in Downing Street, she was called the head of propriety and ethics. So she was the person that would police people's behaviour and stuff. But obviously she's part of the establishment, and I can't see her chucking the sitting Prime Minister under the bus for what is essentially, I think, a workplace gathering, socially distanced, as responsible as they could try and make it, but very ill-judged, and at least a very terrible email being sent round, which has now got out.
So it's like a Lord Geidt job, really, over the wallpaper. That, yes, they did wrong, but, it's okay.
I mean, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I imagine, she's in line for some sort of honours later.
No, what a thing to say. That is dreadful. I'm very surprised. I'm very surprised that we get someone like Sean Worth, a former Downing Street advisor, coming on this programme and making any such suggestion. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.